Hello and welcome to another video by Tiny Mushroom. In this episode of Let's Talk Video Games, we're going to be addressing some of the issues that we talked about in our original Nintendo Switch video. And so we're going to be answering those questions and a few others that we found on Reddit, because now we actually own one.
Ta-da!
Yes.
We're one of the few people who's actually get one in a relatively
It wasn't
good time.
given to us by Nintendo, unfortunately.
But if you are listening, Nintendo, we're always welcome to the sponsorship.
Of course.
We're always willing to sell ourselves out for some games and stuff.
So let's get started with the questions.
Right, so this is going to be a bit of a speculator's guide where we've obviously had a few concerns with the Switch before, which we've already talked about before, and a few other YouTubers and other news outlets have came out and said these are the issues with it. So, as the owner of the Switch in question, these are the most common concerns that I've seen across Reddit and across other media boards. First of all, hardware. Now, we've heard a few problems already about people scratching their screen, some cases the Switch bending. Some people getting the grips stuck in the wrong way and almost breaking the controller. Sync issues with the left Joy-Con. So, how many technical issues have you had with this console so far?
I've had 2, I think, which is good. So, let's get on to the good stuff first. Controllers feel great, whether they're on the console, whether they're in the Joy-Con grip, which hasn't been shortened, unlike what I wanted in the last video.
Yeah,
they feels great. I don't feel a need for a Pro controller whatsoever, and having them that wide together on the handheld feels fine as well.
Yeah, that's a really common thing I've noticed when it came to people saying about the Switch. Particularly taller guys say that the controllers are really tiny, especially when you take them out and you use them as a traditional controller.
We played together with one of the Joy-Cons each. We played with Mario Kart, and even without the additional slot on to actually make the bumpers a bit bigger, it felt fine. Yes, if you were gaming for a couple of hours, it would strain on your fingers and that sort of thing. But for that amount of time we played a couple of Grand Prix, it felt really good. So to go from that to the actual putting those in the Joy-Con grip, to have that universal good feel of the controller, that's a really good design in my view.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like if we do get the Smash Brothers for this thing, I feel like that's ideally
that's going to be the test.
Yeah, that's ideal for that sort of attitude where it's quick 15 minutes, let's just go at it. I think maybe longer co-op sessions would be a little bit uncomfortable if you have someone who's got quite big hands or you don't have the grip attachment or so. But as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly suitable. What are your patterns like with using this? Are you more of a handheld user or docked user or whatever?
I'm a bit of both. So if I need a quick half an hour, I'm handheld for sure. Originally I was handheld, and I was doing that for hours on end, and it felt great. And I've progressed more towards putting it in the dock and having it on the telly, and it looks amazing on the telly. It looked fantastic just on the screen. That's the screen they've got there. It looks amazing. It's a great resolution, but the amount of detail that you pick up when you put it in the dock and you put it on a really decent sized telly is just incredible. And the upscaling, I still can't believe how good it. Both I've got Mario Kart 8 and Zelda, and both the upscaling on those are just fantastic.
That's very positive to hear. Especially seeing as people that are really bothered about graphics they're going to be a little bit complaining that it only goes up to 1080p, but
doesn't matter with the style of art that we've got in these games coming up. Skyrim's going to be a test, of course, but Skyrim is 5 or 6 years old now, so
yeah, but you could also play Skyrim on your toaster as well.
soon.
Soon.
So we've also played it with the Switch standing up, and obviously with those 2 controllers that we're talking about, Joy-Con splitting them, that works fine as well, as long as it's not too far away. So if it is this sort of distance, that's perfectly fine, whereas the screen isn't quite big enough to have it any sort of length of the room away.
If you want to harken back to the Nintendo Switch first commercial where the millennials were having their house party and the people
we were very dubious about that, I have to say.
Yeah, we were oh, of course. Everyone's going to bring their Switch over and we're going to be huddled around together.
Genuinely, that's one of the most fun things you can do. I can vouch for that.
It actually is. That's the weird thing. I think there's a bit of the advert as well where there's 2 cars, there's 2 kids playing in the backseat of a car and they've got the grip attached to the headrest. And I thought, okay, then of course that's going to happen. But I could legit see that happening. Really?
The portability is just endless.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to it. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of hardware issues as well, like the battery. Now, how do you... Because you've been playing mostly Zelda, I imagine, and so has it lived up to the 2.5...
No. It's bad.
Oh, dear.
I originally did it on full brightness, and obviously that did not last long. It lasted under 2 hours. Simple as. Turned down the brightness, it improved it by half an hour, but it's not good. Gotta be honest, it's just not good. and I'm having, this might be me, and if you've got solutions out there, please let me know. But I'm having some issues with switching the console off and then putting it on charge or putting it in the dock to charge, and it's switching itself back on. And so therefore,
so it's not
if
charging.
if I think it's charged and then turn the power off and wait a little bit to play it, it's not fully charged.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting an even more reduced version of the battery life. But aside from that issue, which may be my problem, it's generally not that great outside of the dock, unless you're playing a really low brightness and not using you're playing a game that doesn't use frantically need you to push the buttons or use a lot of utilities that are required.
Okay, then they did say that Zelda was going to be one of the big,
It really
really intensive games. So hopefully we might see better lives when like Super Mario Odyssey or Mario X Rabbids comes out. Just to mention of those.
So you mentioned about people having issues with the dock actually scratching the screen of the Switch. Now I've been very careful in the way I've been putting it in and taking it out of the dock, and so I've been avoiding any contact with the screen. I have no screen protector, and I have seen no scratches or issues on the screen.
I was genuinely concerned when a lot of people came out and said like the
big thing.
Because it's unbelievable that you can damage your console so relatively easily. I mean, the dock isn't exactly like fantastic. It is just like a piece of plastic with just a few more things.
It does what it needs to be honest. It could look a bit more flashy. It could display the Switch in a much better way, having the screen outside of the dock, and so therefore you might be able to play it with the Joy-Cons out of the Switch and having it on the dock like that as a stand.
Yeah, I could see that.
That would be cool, but it really does what it says in the tin, sort of thing.
And it's a bit irritating as well that obviously there's like two little funnels which will guide the console into the dock, like into the charging ports. That's sort of where a lot of people have had concerns. And I've seen really daft things like people putting like rubber padding inside the dock.
You get used to it, honestly. If you're careful, if you're patient, you get used to it. So I mentioned before we went through all the good bits, there's a couple of negatives. So the first one is with the kickstand. So we've got it stood up at the moment. It is so difficult to get the kickstand into that position. So when it's flat on the console back, unless you've got really good and long nails, it's really hard to detach that. There's actually a bit of rubber on the bottom of the kickstand which stops it from slipping, and obviously your nails can go through that rubber, which has happened with mine. So it's actually torn through the rubber. So what I've done, I've put a bit of sellotape in there to stop it fully closing, so I can more easily take it out. So that's a bit of a design flaw, and they could have definitely improved the way the kickstand worked.
It feels like a lot of the, as we were talking about the dock and talking about some of these other things, it feels like they've really cheapened out on a few aspects of it. Like, if you look at the console now, you can tell this is where all of the production money has gone towards. It's gone into the console, it's gone into the Joy-Cons, it's gone into the rail systems, but they've skipped down a few things, and also the fact about the internal memory being quite small. Now, personally, I collect physical games anyway. I've been doing it for years now, so I'm going to get all mine physically. Have you got an SD card in there at the moment?
I do have a massive one in there, 128 gig I think, which would be plenty for me. It would suit the console's life, I'm sure, but for me to have to buy that separately feels like a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, that's really irritating, considering that the standard of home consoles is like you get a 500 gig memory or something like that.
And we had issues with the PlayStation 4, don't forget, with its half a terabyte hard drive capacity, and people could switch it out themselves, and again, that shouldn't really be necessary. Just put a decent size in there and just let the people just forget about that issue.
Shall we move on to obviously the thing that you buy the flipping console for? The games.
The amazing lineup. So yes, so I have Zelda, as I said, Zelda and Mario Kart. That's
it's so unique.
That is literally all I need at the moment. Zelda's a 100-hour easy game. Mario Kart's at least a 50. That's all I need right now.
Yeah, we were talking about this before recording, that it is really a smart move for Nintendo to not just release like a Zelda game as its first one, like a system seller in its own, but a 100-hour game in its own right. It's really clever of them because that sort of helps stagger out the rest of the releases.
It gives them such a good amount of leeway. And imagine if we had 4 or 5 prime like sellers that came out within the first 2 months, people just wouldn't play them. Whereas because they've got this scenario where you can't go wrong with Zelda Mario Kart, they fit so many playstyles of people that you can wait several months. So you've got ARMS that have just come out, then eventually we're going to get Rabbids and Odyssey, and that steady release is actually working. Whereas we were really skeptical in the original video that people would get bored of having to wait for these new games, whereas it just doesn't seem like it's going to be the case.
One thing that I think is like oddly helped this console in a way is the fact that Wii U failed so miserably, Because aside from just Zelda, which is like catering to like the 100+ hour single player market, you've got the family market already in with the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Mhm.
Soon we'll be getting Pokken Deluxe, where
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to pick that up because I really think that's going to be a good, not a system seller, but it's going to be once again just a nice thing to keep you going. We've got
It's like you mentioned with the Smash Brothers. You want something to pick up, play for like minutes at a time, not necessarily hours, and just play together as a multiplayer platform. That's one thing that Mario Kart is doing really well, but on a really linear front on racing game, we want more diversity in that.
exactly. We do want things a bit more. We'll be getting that with Mario X Rabbids Kingdom Battle as well. One big problem that I've got though is the third party.
They're just not getting the reception that they need in comparison to what Nintendo's bringing out.
Exactly. So if we go back to like the days of like the GameCube, which was for most purposes just fully third party, it got quite a few things, but it was hurt by its sales. That's why some third party games didn't come across. It was more or less compatible with comparable to the Xbox and the PS2. Then we get to the Wii, and obviously that's their best selling console, which had next to no third party support towards the end of its life and just became shovelware. The Wii U sort of made that a lot worse because it was very incompatible and it didn't sell. Now I think they're reaching a point where they have a standardized controller. They've got a standardized system, standard controller setup. Yes, their graphics are still underpowered compared to the last few the current generation of consoles. And they're using a different kind of media storage where they're using cartridges instead of discs. I think that's pretty much killed third-party support for this console.
Having said that, FIFA is going to be a big test. If FIFA sells well, that gives so many game developers confidence that this is the console to go for, because that game has such a vast distance at which it goes around the world in its sales. Imagine if that did a comparable sale amount to what was on the PlayStation or the Xbox. That just gives so much confidence to those third parties.
Even if it was just a small amount, because obviously the install base for the PS4 and Xbox One is infinitely bigger. So even if it sold a decent amount compared to how many Switches are in the world at the moment, because just the idea of like being able to play a game of FIFA with your friend just on the table like this, I still think would be like more than enough, because I don't think FIFA really needs much more controls. That obviously have to work around when you're playing it 2-player, and then there's the lack of the second analog stick. We'll live to see that, because we've also had like older ports of games come to the Wii U as well, like the Mass Effect games and the Batman Arkham games as well. So,
but with FIFA, Pokken, Mario Kart multiplayer set, that family sort of getting around the table playing it.
Yeah, I think
friends,
as far as you're concerned right now, like when it comes to are you still quite skeptical about this console? At the moment, honestly, if you just like want to just breeze through like a 100+ hour game like Zelda, go ahead, because it really is worth its purchase, and the lineup is at least steady for the time being.
For this year, it looks good.
So, just wanted to say a quick thanks to the people on the Nintendo Switch subreddit for giving me some of these questions and answers. I asked them what are your concerns before buying a Switch, and we're just going to do a bit of a quick fire round now for somebody who's had a Switch for the last couple of months, and we just want to address those concerns. The first one to talk about is the lack of basic functions in it, such as there's no virtual console on it yet, there's no Miiverse functions, and there's no apps on it yet.
Good point. Very disappointing. If you think back to the interface of the Wii, it's even worse than that, because you used to go on your friends list and see all the Mii's around, and there's not even that functionality. And to go with that, the rumours of how we communicate with our friends and the people online using this confounded headset system that Nintendo seems to have leaked doesn't bode well for that either. So I'm really disappointed with the multiplayer functionality in that sense. But at least we have an eShop, but not an eShop that we wanted.
No, I think once the virtual console comes out, then we'll be like full on like getting all of our classic games back onto there.
I just hope there's no issues with that, in that they can release games from third parties without any licensing issues, and then we just get that big nostalgia hit.
On to the next question. Another user said that there's been too many Wii U ports and he's concerned about the longevity of the console. Do you think we'll be seeing an influx of more Wii U ports going forward?
I think that's helping it at the moment, to be honest, because if you take those out, the schedule for this year looks a lot more empty, and the fact that the Wii U sold so poorly, and especially those games on it, with Pokken especially, what came out in the later half of the Wii U's life, I don't think it's such a problem. And I'm also hoping for Smash Brothers as well to come out, but when you get to half of the games a year becoming ports, then it's an issue, but we're not quite at that stage.
One really specific one I've got is to do with the battery, and it's to do with the heat of the console. which is apparently becoming a more common concern about how this has got 3 batteries in it, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And people are saying that it gets ridiculously overheated once it's been in the dock, and a few people have been umming and ahhing about that. Have you experienced anything about that?
It does get hot, plain and simple. When it's in your hand, you can certainly feel exactly where the batteries are. I've been reading reports of the actual console warping inside of the dock. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen that, yeah.
And so what I've been doing to avoid that is whenever it's in the dock and I'm playing, that's fine. But when I'm not playing, I have to make sure it's out of the dock on a flat surface, and so that can't happen. So I can't control the warping when I'm playing it, but I can when I need it to cool down.
Just imagine you just like, you've got the controller and then you just like get frustrated at something, you go, oh, and then you just bend it.
bend the screen.
Bend it into like
what am I supposed to do now?
You bend it into a U shape. Like, hey, curved tellies are all in the fashion now, so
true
you can have a nice curved tablet.
But one positive one that I have seen is Nintendo are fixing those issues for free.
They are, yes. That fair play to them for doing that.
That was one of the cruxes for me buying one, because I thought I might wait till the next influx of Switches, because there might be a hardware update in a year or so. However, I just couldn't live without playing Zelda for that long.
One last query is, it's actually more of a bit of theory crafting, which is interesting. This user goes on about how this console is modular in the instance that not everything's been put together. And he said that he's going to be waiting to, for maybe like the couple of years or so, once all the kinks have been ironed out, once you make sure that everything's fine, the release lineup the lineup in general will be solid. Now that we're reaching a point where we've got the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, he sort of theorizes that we'll be getting like new adjustments, we'll be getting like different Joy-Cons, or like they'll just release a new screen and you'll be able to play and you'll be able to play it with your existing Joy-Cons, or you could buy a new pair of like deluxe Joy-Cons. Like if you go back to remember when we had that Motion Plus sensor on it. So what do you think about that idea?
That's a really interesting thing that Nintendo could exploit, as you said, having the modular design. So the first thing that springs to my mind is having, for example, fighter game exclusive Joy-Cons. So you know how
like you mean like those giant like the giant things with the buttons and the
take that concept, take that like Street Fighter style tournament concept, that sort of thing, and refine it into a Joy-Con. And I really think that could be something. Or maybe having sort of driver game specific ones, not necessarily steering wheel, but that sort of thing. I like the screen size one that the guy theory crafted. I think that's a good idea, especially when you're improving the console and you don't want to have to completely re-release another version of it. You can just say to people, we've got this for like half the price of the console, this new module of the screen, and the console itself, obviously that's the same unit. If you want to buy it, go for it. If you don't, you can keep the same processor speed and that sort of thing as we've got now.
I would be very interested to see if Nintendo follows fashion.
I don't think they will. I think it's too risky, but it's a cool idea.
So for those on the fence who've read the articles on like the internet, who've heard that, oh yeah, this is the worries about the Switch, these are the pros, these are the cons, this is all the stuff you have to buy, what would you say your recommendation is?
I think absolutely heed those warnings and do as I've done and fit your playstyle to avoid such issues. But beyond that, don't worry too much and just enjoy the games lineup that you're going to get, because it is absolutely stellar, if not a little bit small at the moment. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you've got any further questions or thoughts about the Switch, don't forget to put them in the comment box below. We always like hearing what you guys have to say and think. And we'd also encourage you to check out our playlist. This is an episode of our Let's Talk Video Games playlist. We've got a similar one called Let's Talk Comics, where we discuss comic books, comic-related media. And we've got our third playlist of classic gaming, where me or Zach try out a new game of a classic era which we've never really played before. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time. See you next time.